Welcome again to 2023 MSR Research Colloquium. We are on our session number 3 on the title of AI and Education, Management Education. And let me share who the members would be. So the members would be Eduarda, Jody, Prof, Anil, Maheshwari, myself, and Joanna, Santiago from Portugal. Okay, so Joanna, is Jody here? Let's see. Jody was here in the morning. I think we should begin, right, Eduarda?
Okay.
Yeah. So you have sent me the chart because you were having some problems with the internet. Are you okay to share, or what do you want to do?
No, I'm okay to, if you give me permission, but yeah.
Okay, hey, you have permission, and Joanna, you have permission.
Okay. I'm not going to start right ahead with sharing.
Yeah, please go ahead.
Okay. So good afternoon, everybody. So I'm Eduarda Soares, and I'm a teacher of organizational behavior and human resources management at the University of Lisbon in Portugal. So I suppose that the majority here is also teaching, and so I imagine that, like me, you're struggling with preparing the new academic year, and because oscillating between the need to mitigate all the new possibilities of cheating that students have with ChatGPT, and also the desire to know how we can use these new tools to engage students and to do more interesting classes. So ChatGPT and other artificial intelligence tools are quite new to us. So it's not like, and I suppose nobody in the panel here is an expert on this issue, but we are all willing to share with you what we've learned, and also we are eager to learn from you. So what we are going to do here is we have 4 panelists, which I'm going to introduce in a moment, and then each of the panelists will have 10-15 minutes to speak about how we deal with artificial intelligence and management education and teaching management courses. And then subsequently, we'll have an interaction moment where everybody is invited also to share their experiences and their concerns. So this is more about sharing and learning with each other than presenting ready-made solutions. Okay, so I'm going to start with presenting the panelists. Okay, so as I said, I am from the University of Lisbon, but I was born in Mozambique in Africa, and I got my PhD in the Netherlands. So my research interests mainly cover topics of social sustainability, including issues related to employee well-being and engagement. Over the last years, I became particularly interested in topics such as gratitude in organizations, meaningful work, and also the relationship between religion and aspects of organizational behavior. So as I said, I teach organizational behavior, master's degree level and PhD, human resources for undergraduates, and also I teach principles of management to undergrad students, and they're my major concern because I have classes with 500 undergraduate students, and so there's a big need to control these new tools and know what to do with them. Then the other panelists, we have Anil, which you all know by now, I imagine. So he's Director of Executive Education and Professor of Management Information Systems at Maharishi International University, where he teaches courses in data analytics, strategic management, leadership, enterprise performance, among others. So he's published several research papers and book chapters in the fields of leadership, technology, and consciousness. And he's also the author of several books on technology management and spirituality. And recently, this month, actually, Anil presented McGraw-Hill's webinar on data privacy in the age of artificial intelligence. Then, I don't know, has Jody arrived? No? Not yet. Okay, so I will present.
I mean, I've sent him an email reminding him if somebody has a cell phone. Then, anyway,
okay. So I present Joanna next. So Joanna Kowalski Santiago. Well, she's the most international person I know. She speaks several languages, but she can do taxes in several countries. But okay, so Joanna, like me, is located in Portugal, although today she's in Italy. So she teaches at the University of Lisbon, where she got her PhD, but she has also graduated from executive formation on artificial intelligence in business strategy at the MIT. She's also teaching at the Normandy Business School in France, and there she teaches conversational UX design and introduction to customer experience, as well as big data analytics, and all this for the Master of Science in Artificial Intelligence for Marketing Strategy. Besides France and Portugal, she's also teaching in Leuven in Belgium, and there she teaches artificial intelligence, e-commerce, and CRM. And finally, she's interested in researching the impact of new technologies on business and education. So I don't know if Jody is joining, but I'll briefly present him in case he joins us later. So Jody is a professor at Texas A&M University, where he's program director of the Master of Science in Leadership for Sustainability. Presently is a member of the editorial review board for the Leadership Quarterly and Public Inquiry, and he was a former editor for the Journal of Management, Spirituality and Religion. So Jody's present research, consulting and executive development interests are focused on maximizing the triple bottom line through spiritual leadership. So these are our panelists. So I am going to start with my, so maybe I start and then Anil and then Joanna. So we can start in this order, and then we invite the audience to make comments on our presentations and to offer all the insights that you can on this topic that I suppose is worrying all of us for the new academic year. So let me put my presentation here and share the screen. Do you see my PowerPoint now? Yes? Okay.
Yes, we do. If you could go in full
thank you.
That'd be great. Yeah.
Okay, so I started, when I started hearing the news on ChatGPT, I started to attend several sessions, both in Portugal and international ones, both in person and in webinars. And they've been inspiring me a lot how to use these new tools as a personal teaching assistant to create content and also to help students have personal tutors. So not only worried about how students are going to cheat more and how they're not going to learn because ChatGPT does the work for them, and so they don't answer, so they don't learn. So I tried to focus on the positive side of things. Okay, so I got many insights, but finally what inspired me most was this document by UNESCO. So it's ChatGPT and Artificial Intelligence in Higher Education, a quick start guide. So UNESCO has been dealing with artificial intelligence in education for quite a few years now. So from the Beijing Consensus on Artificial Intelligence and Education in 2019 to more recently to AI and Education in 2021, guidance for policymakers. So this year, they already created this little start guide, which I found inspiring. So they mention applications in several areas: teaching and learning, research, administration, and community engagement. So they're all very interesting, but I'm going to focus on teaching and learning. So, but you know, I saw, as I said, through many webinars and in-person sessions, many ideas. But in the end of the day, we all have our own courses, and we know our students. So I think although it's interesting because it can inspire you, it's not really, then it's up to you to find for your own courses and your own students. So I'm just going to share how I do it with, how I'm preparing it with two inspirations that I got from this booklet. So here, for teaching and learning, they describe several examples. One is the possibility engine, where artificial intelligence generates alternative ways of expressing an idea. Okay, so here, mainly, most of us has been using it as, okay, I write a sentence, then this is not exactly what I wanted. Maybe I asked ChatGPT to help me write it better. But it can also, when you think of ChatGPT or other AI tools as a possibility engine, it gives you many alternatives. So I'll just tell you what I've been doing with this possibility engine. So every year, one of the exercises I give to the students in the first year of management is to help them deal with ethical dilemmas. Okay, so they always have exercises with ethical dilemmas, and then two of the major questions that they have for solving the dilemma is, so who are the stakeholders? And then what alternative courses of action do you have? So what I did was I introduced the dilemmas that we have in ChatGPT, and I asked it these two questions. So who are the stakeholders? So who are the people who are going to be affected by your decision in this dilemma? And what are the alternative courses of action do you have? And I know my students, usually they identify 2 or 3 stakeholders and 2 or 3 courses of action. And ChatGPT actually identified 9 of each. So 3 times more than my normal student identifies, okay? So it goes further in the identification. So I decided to think, okay, and now what do we do with this? So the students are just going to feel, if we do it in class without using ChatGPT, and then we check what ChatGPT says, the objective is not to make the students feel stupid because they could only do 1/3 of what ChatGPT does. So what I'm planning to do is, for example, for identifying the stakeholders, the people who are going to be affected by the decision, to use this. So the students first identified the stakeholders, and then ChatGPT identifies the stakeholders, and then create a discussion on why didn't we think of those particular stakeholders, okay? So why are the reasons that they were invisible to us? We located the ones that are more visible, and we forgot about lots of stakeholders. And I know they're going to do it because I've been using these dilemmas for a few years now, and usually I always get in stakeholders and not the other ones. So when we do this, in the end, it's quite possible that we will end up, what I think is going to happen when we discuss why we didn't think of some of the stakeholders, so why our level of consciousness about them was so low, I think we're going to end up identifying the moral intensity model of Jones in those reasons. So it's going to be a way, I think, to identify the elements of moral intensity that lead us to forget about some of the stakeholders. And the same thing about the development of courses of action. So why didn't we think about some courses of action? Why did we got stuck with some, maybe the most obvious ones, and not go further? So I think it's going to be a good exercise on students thinking about their own consciousness of situations and their own moral intensity. Okay, then just giving you another example, Socratic opponent. It's quite interesting, this idea, and I saw it, I think it was a professor of Harvard University saying to ChatGPT, using a ChatGPT prompt of, you are a student so-and-so, ask me a question about this topic. So it allows you to feed ChatGPT with a particular personality and then make them ask questions. And so I was thinking, how can I use this in my classes? Okay, there's something that is maybe cultural to Portugal, which is students don't usually like to present any criticism to each other. Okay, so we have, in my classes, we have cases that students have to solve. And then usually for each case, I have two groups. One group is going to present their solution to the case, and the other group is going to discuss that solution to the case. Okay, and typically we had a problem here because the students who are going to do the discussion, the only thing that they did was say, I think they did a very good job. They had a very clear and interesting presentation, and they covered all the important aspects. Okay, because students, I don't know if you share the same problems in other countries. Here they are very collectivistic. They don't criticize each other. They only say very positive things. So in recent years, to overcome this problem, what we've started to do was suggest students that in the group they use Eduarda de Bono's 6 thinking hats. Okay, so they have one student focusing on facts, one focusing on creativity, one on emotions. I don't know if you know the 6 thinking hats of Eduarda de Bono. The white hat for facts, the yellow for the positive things, the black for risks, and so on. So to make students think, we we distribute the hats, and now it's working better. So I decided to try this with ChatGPT. So I introduced an essay and said, so you are the yellow hat, what do you have to say? You are the green hat, what do you have to say? And what I found was, actually, my students do a better job than ChatGPT with these hats. Okay, so I think they are going to like it, to be challenged, to be better. Because in the other one, the one for the ethical dilemmas, ChatGPT performs better than them. I've noticed that, but then I can turn it into a way of discussing their consciousness levels and also their moral intensity levels. Here, notice that they do perform much better than ChatGPT. So it's going to be interesting to show them that their critical thinking levels are that they can develop it, and that ChatGPT is poor in performing in this critical assessment of things. So this is only 2 ideas that I'm going to leave with you. Then, just to finish, in this quick start guide, it also presents problems and challenges and ethical implications of higher education. So all these points are covered in the guide: academic integrity, lack of regulation, privacy concerns, cognitive bias, gender and diversity, that it can increment stereotyping, accessibility and commercialization, because OpenAI is a private company, so we don't know about the future. So for academic integrity, focusing just on that, what we are all thinking about doing is doing more in-class things and less outside of class work, and also less written essays, more other type of essays. For me, I've noticed that figuring out, there are already programs that allow you to identify if your students are using ChatGPT to write their essays. For me, it's going to be, I found it that it's going to be easy in a way, because you have Portuguese from Portugal and Portuguese from Brazil. So I noticed that by default, it writes in Portuguese from Brazil. So, and I noticed my students are pretty lazy, so it's easy to detect, because I know it has happened before, just using even before ChatGPT, it was easy to detect, because when a Portuguese student is writing in Brazilian, it's easy to know that the student is cheating, and ChatGPT writes a lot in Brazilian Portuguese, so it's easy to detect. So all of us have to find out new ways of detecting, and there are already new tools for detecting lack of integrity. So in the end, the guide also gives you some ideas about how to use ChatGPT with care and creativity. So, and we are trying to implement all of this in the subjects that we are teaching next year. So I was with the team doing this yesterday. So discussing the impact, we are going to do this with the students in the pedagogical board, and they are usually have very interesting points. So, but this is not going to be for inside each class, but already in the syllabus for next year, clear guidance on when they can use it and how they can use it and when they cannot use it. So which assignments it's allowed and which assignments it's not allowed. Trying to put ChatGPT already in the learning outcomes, how to develop their communication skills and the critical thinking skills already in the learning outcomes. Review all the assessment and evaluation to try to mitigate the possibilities of cheating. And Also, something interesting, trying to improve the queries. Some queries are not very good, so it's important that everybody is making an effort to improve the queries and to tell students, okay, at the end of the assignment, if you used prompts, you need to, like before you put the references, now you are going to write the prompts you used for doing this assignment. And so this is a whole new reality, and we're taking baby steps right now. And this is what I'm planning for next year, some of the things that I'm planning for next year. So, and now I pass it on to Anil and I stop sharing. You're still mute, Anil.
Thank you very much. I love this whole Portuguese from Portugal and Portuguese from Brazil example. And I figured people in Britain might be very easy, I find it very easy to catch English level copying, because ChatGPT writes a lot in American English, not in Queen's English. So this whole geographical differences of English could be very interesting. Anyway, so there's so much to say, and almost sometimes feels like nothing to say. Let's see, this is education. We are into education, so let me see if we can. I have a couple of insights, and then the rest will be pretty something you would have seen. First thing that I have seen, which is something, education remains, and I think everybody's saying what I've heard, it will remain an important ladder for progress and growth, even as it continues to evolve. Education will evolve, but continued ladder for progress. One of the things that I think Dr. Soares referred to was this idea of Harvard person saying this, meaning these half the schools will be going out of business. It's driven by the insight of the unbundling of education, higher ed. So one is that he had, I think it's Govind Raja, but it could be somebody else. I forget who the professor is, but he gave a presentation saying education does three things. The higher education institution does do three things. They instruct, right? Stuff which we're talking about. How do we teach them? Second is we then certify, because we have the power to give degrees, so we have the power to sort of grade exams and all that stuff, so certification. And third is the social, the community aspect of people making friends and generating alumni network, etc. Now, what he was saying is they could be unbundled. And this is like from 5-7 years ago when the whole online education was coming up. And, I think this AI would only sort of put it on steroids. So instruction right now, instead of being done by a professor who's 20 years out of PhD and using a book that's 3-5 years old, which is itself 2-4-5 years out of research, it could be actually very up to date, and it could be very personalized based on what you are interested in, subtopics, etc. It would be available 24/7 and look very inexpensive. Khan Academy is free practically, and so on and so forth. Certification could also be virtual, micro certifications. Google has been talking about that, and be very skill driven. What can you do? Not about sort of have you completed 3 years here, 4 years here, that sort of that big degree kind of thing could become sort of be at least complemented with this micro certifications. And social skills could be served by various ways, some virtual communities, online communities, or some elite communities. And that's where if you want all of these things together, then it'll be the sort of the Ivy League institutions where the charge will be like whatever difficult to get in and very high fee. So there will be some niche educational opportunities and facilities for a certain number of people, but a lot more of work-related stuff or action-related stuff or creativity-related stuff could be done using various tools that are becoming available. So that one thing has stayed with me for many, many years, and I think that trend is not stopping. And as I said, the AI could help in delivering somewhere above, more innovatively, more expensively, and at scale. So another insight I had this was what we have this, enterprise learning objectives or ELOs, what does E stands for, but probably universities LO, suppose, learning objectives of students, there's some at the university level, some at the department level or school level and like that. So one of our colleagues suggested that learning objectives will shift what AI cannot do. And I saw this guy, that marketing guru said, nobody will pay you to do what ChatGPT can do in 5 minutes. So our learning objectives will shift to how to effectively use AI to answer a higher order question that ChatGPT cannot do. We are hearing from marketing people, 90% of marketing jobs are going away. I have a friend whose company is shedding marketing people because AI generates a whole copy for the day in like 10 minutes instead of somebody taking 2 hours. And then the marketing person has only to edit a little bit here, there. So I think management education is coming specifically to imagining and managing AI projects for integratively and ethically serving. I think the ethics issues will remain with human beings and integratively. Integrative is very interesting. Right now we go to a doctor for something and a teacher for something and a transportation person something and a banker to finance. Why couldn't it be just one system, like a mega app, mega system, in which all people who have certain human beings or certain specialties chime in, and the person just deals with one entity and says, my life. Like, you have this Weibo in China, WeChat, sort of everything is on one mega app. And I think many organizations are trying to create that mega app. So I think that will be a big trend that we will help people manage themselves. In fact, Maharishi Mahesh Yogi had renamed our university from Maharishi International University to Maharishi University of Management. And because for him, it became that all education is about management of the self. There's not a management alone, sort of in the corporate sense. So I think that the whole management education will eventually shift to managing the self across what is considered industries. There are many people who have talked about the AI gurus. They've talked about all of industries are ripe for disruption, and when they settle, it'll be just told like a whole bunch of AI would be on your let me just pin. Will be on one phone, and then you could have all the answers for various things that you will need to know. I need to entertainment. Everything could be in one. One thing I just wrote down based on hearing Eduarda was this: we have a very interesting double standard. If AI ChatGPT gets in the hands of the student, we consider it cheating. If it gets in our hands, it's power. Right? So in fact, that thought has been with me, and that's why probably I resonated with it is that education need not be a contact sport. It not be competitive sport. It doesn't have to be a sport in which sort of teachers and students have a sort of confrontational thing. And that because I think happens because certification needs, etc. If the certifications are done in certain unbiased way by other agents where human beings are not involved, then I think it will be very different. So this is, for me, the wholeness of AI in higher education. And let's see, this is, so I just put together this chart just a few minutes ago. I mean, this inserted a couple of charts in my other presentation. But let me just share that AI, that AOM, I think 2 or 3 years ago, when it went online, I was looking at this thing and then said, they showed research on a robo as a boss. And they found that the bigger hit was employees preferred robos as a boss compared to a human being as a boss. Can you believe that? I was just shocked. I found it unsettling, actually shocked. And then, but that with the nuance was for routine jobs. If you're doing certain things which are routine, the robot doesn't get tired, is sort of driven more objective. And while for creative work, where there's some explanation, discussion required, they still prefer human boss. So I think creativity is alive and well in that sense, and human beings will continue to be important. Now, new research shows an expansion of the same trend. One will have to build upon one skill base. Now, the other research that shows is that only those people who are fully educated will be able to use the AI for creativity. If you are way below AI level of knowledge in a domain, then you will not be able to use AI for your creative work because AI will do more creative work than yourself. I guess that's my explanation. But the finding is that unless you are fully skilled at the logical level in a particular domain, yeah, the ability to use AI for creativity will be limited. So in other words, if I'm not trained as a doctor, if I need to use AI creatively to do certain things, may or may not be possible. Maybe it's possible, but depends on how the connection can be established. Chat GPT for educators, we heard about what Chat GPT is just earlier in the previous talks. I'll not go through it, but I think educators can use it. We can use it. And I think Eduarda, you went through a whole long list from that book. But I think in a sense for us as educators is answer common questions, right? Just go to Chat GPT. They ask all kinds of questions. It's a fairly authoritative answer. Sometimes they hallucinate. We need to be vigilant about it. Provide learning resources if they want to do. In fact, I'll give a demo later, a tutorial on Chat GPT in about a few hours. So for 4, 5, 6 hours. So that will just show how even you can tabular output. You can say, what is the impact of, let's say, Chat GPT or AI on education? Give me a tabular form and with the academic reference, it can create that itself in 5 minutes. So, and then of course, AI can create support and guidance, because right now we're all driven by, it's like you say, we are looking at reliving our parents or we're reliving our teachers or our bosses or sort of guides, but the world is sort of changing and there's a lot more happening in the world than just what our guide does. So we'll have a more guidance, broader guidance. And so I just was looking at a couple of weeks ago, I guess, for academia, they said, Washington Post story said, we tested a new Chat GPT detector for teachers. It flagged innocent students. 5 high school students helped our tech columnists test the Chat GPT coming from, turn it into 2.1 million teachers. It missed enough to get in trouble. So Chat GPT is not perfect, like and catching this thing. It could be, for various reasons, it could be the language or whatever. But it says it's a pivotal moment for educators. Ignore AI and cheating could go rampant, right? In a certification role. Yet, even Turnitin executives say that treating AI purely as an enemy of education makes about as much sense in the long run as trying to ban calculators. Now, it goes back to the calculator slide rule idea. Tom is, I think, Kalam is here. You'll go back and say, oh, you remember I used to do the slide rule. So anyway, slide rules were allowed, and then calculators came. I was in engineering around the time when sort of this calculators were coming in. So you cannot ban them, and there was obviously debate at that time: can we ban them? One conscious researcher said, "I'm basically teaching my students how to use this technology critically and consciously." This is again comment that critically and consciously, I'm just educating them on using it. I'm being on their side, if they, And then Imans Barus, who's a consciousness researcher, has written many books. He's at Oxford. He said the introduction of Chat GPT has created havoc in the academy. In fact, I have a go-to-meeting of an integrity committee that was set up by the associate dean just to figure out what to do with the chatbots. So far, we have gotten nowhere. So I think we have a sort of a bittersweet relationship with these technologies. So there was a picture I saw somewhere that said, we like to teach people new things, except we don't want to learn new things. We pretty much want to do our own way. So academia is quite resistant to new techniques. So we just need to be open to that. Now, this is a very interesting part of what is it that we teach, and is it teachable? What we teach, we end up teaching what we can teach. We can teach how to remember. We can teach how to understand. We can be the sage on stage, give a lot of knowledge, how to apply, even how to analyze. When to critically evaluate, then we get a little bit of trouble, because one person's critical evaluation can be sort of very bad for another person, and teacher may not agree. The creative part is even more difficult to evaluate, and forget about teaching it. How do you teach creativity? And creativity is a sort of as a 4-part idea. One is to saturate with some knowledge and ingest it, and then you incubate. You just, at some point, the insight comes, aha moment comes. Like Roger Penrose said, he was crossing the street, and it came to him. He went and wrote, and that's what he solved the black holes equation, and he got a Nobel Prize for it. So that's how it is. And then you describe the new thing. So creativity is very hard to teach, so we don't teach it. what does it mean for us if we can't teach it, or we don't know how to teach, we cannot teach it? How do you stay relevant? So it's a thing for us, and it's not just management, it's kind of all education. How do you teach creativity? In fact, the research on creativity started in 1950 with president of APA, American Psychological Association, J.P. Guilford, saying, "Oh, here's a 120-part model, 4x6x3x2, something like that." He did, and then it became like a 120-part. Let's teach all these things. Everybody research there. Except you can't put creativity in a box. Creativity has necessarily to be that open thing, like we discussed in the morning. So that is part of the challenge. So incubating is an innermost facility that's facilitating meditation. It's going inwards, not necessarily something we can teach. Now, these are some charts I kind of borrowed from on the web. So what AI can do in education, it can save time, it can do tutoring all the time, and can enhance students' health also. That's very interesting. That can guide, be a big mentor. One of the things I realized earlier, sort of a whole educator, if you think of as a more guru, education is more than just a trainer, instructor, educator, sort of as a research component, cognize new knowledge, teach knowledge, mentor people, and even administer the place, run the class, run the schools, and run the deanship, etc. And the whole thing is that, right now we've got all this stratified and compartmentalized. Those who do research don't focus on teaching. Those who for teaching, they don't do counseling. They're counseling. Those they don't do administration research. They don't understand each other. So it's become very stratified. Ideally, education, the pulling out, drawing out a person should be done by a whole person to create the student as a whole person. Right now, it's very much a sort of the banking model that we give them various tools. So I think the AI functionality and AI-based tools can do instant feedback. Khan Academy is able to grab feedback as to which part are you struggling at, and so what is the question that people are all struggling at without them telling you. How much time they spend, how much often do they go back to a question that gives them complete feedback. So teachers will become motivators and creating scenarios, imagination, creativity. Those are things I think that human beings will do. Again, the applications are very many, and again, these are nothing that we don't know about. So this is the certification part, proctoring. There's so many online education proctoring tools, personalized learning. We accumulate data to get insights, predictive analytics, smart content. These are all online content systems that actually track how you're doing. Virtual facilitator, you can have a tutor who's answering a question. Again, Khan Academy offers it for free. Automated grader, something similar as Proctor, but different. Chat campus, answering campus. So you can have a whole campus essentially you're running by chat. Adaptive learning, adaptive learning is the idea of if you're slow at something, it'll spend more time with you on that. Or if you're not interested in something, it'll skip that thing. So it's not like one certification and one big exam, including everything you need to know. No, it'll be adaptive at many levels. So, and the chat job. Again, so the idea is that you can use AI for immediate feedback, teacher assessment of, again, adaptive assessment of skills and weaknesses, smart content for everyone. A learning plan can be customized, automated admin tasks, sort of a lot of the reporting and a lot of the grading can be done by AI, and then tutor and guide outside the classroom. Now, again, there's lots of problems that can be converted to solutions using AI. Standard curriculum can be personalized. Limited tutor time can be 24/7 virtual tutor. Grading will be just completely graded, like even AI is able to read the whole subjective answers. So large class can be virtual classroom assistant, and personalized communication is not possible, but chatbots can do that. And so you can see the dropout. Big one is the dropout rates, right? The universities are struggling these days. They're losing students. Small universities in bigger trouble. How do you have early detection system, right? That the sentiment analysis, like companies have been doing that for your product. When are they going to switch, or they're going to churn, they're going to drop your product. Same way one can do sentiment analysis on students. So, and then of course on research, etc. So I think the many things would be done differently, not necessarily better or worse, but so now the software that's coming is, all of these things can improve the learning, the teaching, the grading, the adaptive learning, the tutoring, giving data gathering, et cetera, et cetera. So these are all flavors on the various same kind of idea. But you can also do trial and error, and the software keeps on growing. I think we heard today, even in the last session, that we have to constantly evolve. Just as the software is evolving, AI is evolving, the data is growing. We just need to evolve to be better and educate ourselves well. To me, that insight is that we'll have to educate, not just train. Not train in using X, but educate as a whole person to be able to live a better life. Educational planning process, this is for the universities, right? What can we do? Plan survey and plan the survey. So how you get data about what's going on, what the students need. What is the goals and objectives that we need to do? Then you design the program. So a lot of these things, planning, gathering data can be done by AI. They can almost do prescriptive stuff, so they can even do the program design and specification. Of course, you would do program provision and the getting resources, etc. But then a lot of the planning process and the execution process can be very prescriptive from just the basic analysis to that level. So now educational counseling. I'm very big now. I'm just getting warmed up to the idea of coaching. Coaching has become such a big industry. It just took me by surprise. But so many people I know have become life coaches. Why is there a need for a life coach? What is it that university is not doing that? Why do we need so many life coaches? We have to teach life skills. I think that's what our education skill will have to become. Otherwise, it's almost like, you send somebody to K to 12 education and then send the evening to tutoring, like classes. Same thing here. You send them to university, then you send them life coach, because who's going to assemble everything? Who's going to integrate? So anyway, so I think the counseling for working professionals would be that what kind of studies to do, how do you find interview, how to relate to people, getting right skills, understanding yourself, so that you know what your career is, what your dream job is, and then plan for that. If you need to navigate a career change, when I was getting out of college, they were saying there were at least 8 careers that we would do in our lifetime. I think now the short life, half-life of career might be just an year or so, year or two. So switching jobs, etc., and what are the opportunities for me, etc. And then we can go through what are the skills. I think a lot of the use we will teach would be, again, from a teaching perspective, will be how AI can help with various tools so they actually use the systems. This is my favorite ending slide. I will use it multiple times. It's this idea that think in layers and waves. I think AI is coming, and AI, we need to be able to see the infinity in a point value. Infinite power is becoming available to us in a point value. How do we use it without getting threatened by it, and just empowering the students? When I teach data analytics, the biggest compliment I've received over the last couple of years is that they lose all fear of data. I really consider the biggest compliment. Data is, of course, a big thing, but if I can help that, then of course, then they know how to deal with data. So if we can remove fear of life, remove fear of anxiety, create this thing that we have the infinite power within us, like we discussed in the morning session, then I think then we are doing a good job of educating. And AI then can become a powerful tool in our hands, just like horses were, or computers are, or cars are, or self-driving cars are. So I think AI will make education better. I take that stand. Thank you.
Thank you, Anil. A very interesting presentation. I learned a lot, and I already have some questions, but let's hear Joanna. Joanna first.
All right. Hello, that's me. Shall be the last one. Okay. Hello, everybody. First of all, thank you for inviting me in. I think it's amazing that finally we talk about artificial intelligence and all the new technologies that we have to struggle with and deal with and learn how to use them. Because I think really we are living in a fascinating times. Actually, Eduarda have introduced me here very, very well. Thank you, Eduarda, for that. In one word, I'm European, and I have experience, and I'm joining experience from various European universities. Why is that? Well, I love observing students, and I love to check what are the differences, because we are a small continent, but still, when I'm teaching in Portugal, it's so different than the France, than Belgium, than so the students have different perspectives, and we also. I've just been to the American Marketing Society conference, and we were discussing one day also, what shall we do with all of that? What should be the way that academia, what should be the way that the path that we will follow? And I think it's so important for us to decide, and I think that it's important for all the professors and educators to be on board, because I strongly do believe that we cannot forbid that. Because if we will forbid, for instance, do not use ChatGPT, what they will do? The first thing, of course, they will go and check what it is. And, you know, my first job as a recent grad was for European Commission. I was checking what will be the impact of internet on education and on companies many years ago, right? So, you know, can you imagine that we will say that it's forbidden to Google it, that it's forbidden to check something on internet? So it's the same thing that's we are dealing with now. And I think it's very, very important that we will learn and share our experiences and learn more. And actually, I agree with every word that Anil has said, because I've just given 7 different courses this semester at different universities. And most of those courses were the courses that I was teaching for the first time. And I'm so glad I could do that, but I'm so tired right now. Like, I need vacations, because it's really challenging to be teaching new things and to be using these new technologies, right? So, yeah, Anil, I'm not sure. Can you give me permission to share a few slides with you as well? Can I do that? Let's see. I can.
You are the co-host. You are the co-host. Yeah, I made you.
Okay, wonderful. So here we go. All right, thank you so much. And sorry, I did not mention. Can you see?
Yes, we can see the pyramids.
Okay, yeah. So I'm starting here with pyramids, and you can ask me what this has to do with the education and with the new technologies and artificial intelligence. And actually, you know, I travel a lot, and sometimes at the airport, I'm getting this crazy airport books. And I have here one of them with me. I'm not sure if you can see because I'm kind of not sharing. It's called Virtual Society, the Metaverse and the New Frontiers of Human Experience. And this book made me thinking, it's, you know, it's not bad. And it says, look at what happened with the humankind. We were always trying to create something bigger. Why people are investing so much in artificial intelligence, in metaverse, in all those technologies? It's the same like they were building big temples or pyramids. We don't know what for exactly they serve, but they are still there, and we can appreciate the grandness of our ancestors. And it's a little bit like this. I completely agree that we human beings, we are not stupid, and we always want, and we have the strive to discover new things and to be closer up there. Look at the meditation, right? It serves something. It has the reason why we do that. So there is something mystic about this. And I think all this progress, it's only showing the humankind and the strength that we have. And now, when we are teaching subjects related to artificial intelligence, or when we are trying to use those tools, we have to realize one thing: artificial intelligence, it's not so intelligent as that. You can say, Eduarda was mentioning, students can be intimidated by ChatGPT. I was showing one exercise I made with my students, and they realized that they are still smarter. They are still the human element here. So yeah, actually, let's start here. Hope that you can hear the music as well. All right. I would say, I'm not sure if you could hear the music. It was the Star Wars music. And this is how I actually start my courses on artificial intelligence with the students.
We could hear it. We could hear it.
Sorry, you?
We were able to hear it. Thank you.
Okay, good. You know, there is something that what gives me work as a professor, but also the pleasure, is trying to find the link with our students. And bless the spirits, I'm still, you know, on top with my sister, with Harry Potter and Star Wars and all these things. Anyway, artificial intelligence is something that everybody talks about, but not everybody can fully understand. And I think this is our first task as educators. We have to fully comprehend or try to comprehend it by ourselves. And when we are explaining and using these techniques, we also have to understand how they work, what for they were designed, and how we can use them for our advantage. Okay, so when we are explaining the artificial intelligence, I'm actually starting a little bit, you know, we all know it's about the data and it's about the algorithm, but what artificial intelligence really can do at its core? Well, one of the things is the generalized learning. And this is something that academia always strives for, right? Wherever study that we do, whatever study we conduct, we always have the worry at the end, can I generalize my findings or not? 99% of the studies I made, I can say, well, not to the fullest extent, right? But artificial intelligence should have the ability for the generalized learning to look at the whole and to generalize from the findings from the input. So this is the first thing. If we find generalized learning, I can say, okay, this application is intelligent. So this is number one. Number two, well, it has to have the ability for reasoning. So look at the robot here. You know, it's like human being. We are still smarter. Like if we are to choose the path, we have a stony path and we have the path that's, you know, easy way, and you are sure it's more difficult to break your leg. Which one would you choose as human being? The stony one or the easy one? I bet that it's the easy one, right? If the machine or the system has the reasoning ability, so it's able to choose which path to take, we can say, okay, it's intelligent. Yeah, it's know what it's doing. And here is the third thing, and this is something that we humans also have. We really can adapt to different circumstances, and we will be using all different kind of inputs that we can. So here is a stream. The robot cannot swim. Well, it was not constructed for that. What shall it do? Shall it jump? What shall it do? When we give it some input, I'm not sure if you can see here, some what it would do. And I'm asking my students always, like, what the robot shall do? And some of them would say, he will construct a trap or a boat. And some of them say, he will make a bridge. And here it is, right? So the robot, the artificially intelligent system or machine, it's using the input to find finds the solution. And so those three things here, it's a problem solving, generalized learning, reasoning, and problem solving will give me a definition of artificial intelligence. And we must not forget that artificial intelligence, it's not feeling emotions. And this is something that still we human, you know, that's why I really believe that the employees say, I prefer the robot as a boss. And in many studies that I have run, also the customers of the restaurants, the guests of the hotel, they were saying, we prefer the robot than a human being because the human being can have a bad mood. And the robot is always the same, you know, kind of, or our friend or not. So that's why people prefer the robots. They are curious about it, but it also comes to some extent because we human beings do not like when the robot looks like a robot. We prefer that it looks like a robot. Crazy thing, yeah? So this is artificial intelligence, and this is the one struggle we have, or advantage that we have. And the other advantage is the world of information. With the rise of social media is something that I was studying a lot, and in the recent years, we've noticed that something wrong or different is happening in all this internet and social media. We call it the world of information. There is so much of information that sometimes we feel lost. In social media studies, we are using a variable, a dimension that's called information overload. So we cannot process all the information. We feel like all the information is out there. It's so easy to get, right? Before, when you were studying, when you were at school, you were going to a library, you were taking 3 days sometimes to find one definition. Right now, in a second, I can tell the same phrase in Portuguese, in Italian, and in Mandarin, which is the language I do not speak, but I can use Google Translator. So the information is there, but we are overloaded by that. And not always we can see what is the right information and what is the information that we are really seeking for. You can say it's really time consuming, right? When we are trying to write an article, to make a new course, to make a study, when our students are trying to make an assignment, they are losing a lot of time searching for information, but they are also learning by the process of searching, which is good. And this is a little bit the ability we are losing. So it leads us to the concept of big data. And there's a lot of interest in big data. And you'll see that artificial intelligence and all these tools that are coming are to help us really to deal with big data. Which is the big data? It's this massive volume of information, and the information can be structured. So we can calculate, make some, structural equation modeling, and here we go. But we also have the semi-structured information. We can have the sentiment analysis. We have the posts, the videos. We coming from many different sources. So with all this race, with Web 3.0, with all this amount of information, of course, that we need tools that will help us to process all the information, not to feel lost, and to try to identify the information that's useful for us, right? So here comes the problems that we will have. The data integration, how I, human being, can integrate all this data that is coming from different sources. One of the abilities I have is to speak many languages. So sometimes when I'm searching for a topic, I'm trying first in one language, and if I'm not satisfied, I'm searching in another one. Now you can do it with natural language processing, right? Automatic translation. But I always felt like it was one of my superpowers, because if I'm to investigate a drink that's coming from Italy, it's better that I do it in Italian. And if I want to get to know about Portuguese cuisine, I better do it in Portuguese. Otherwise, I will have opinion of origin trying Portuguese dish as well. So anyway, the data comes from different sources, and to analyze it, it's becoming really complex. So the traditional techniques that we were using are not so valid anymore. Other thing, I'm as a researcher, I believe 90% of the studies that I do is based on quantitative data. Now, if you look to the media, to Web 3.0, what is happening, 80% of the information that's shared, it's unstructured. So I have to look to other techniques, and I think that we will have all to learn the new techniques, how to process all this data that we cannot structure and we cannot calculate statistically. So artificial intelligence comes as a tool and salvation, and it's to liberate us from this overload of information. It's to help us to process. So we have a few techniques and few technologies that will allow to organizations and also, of course, universities to transform a little bit. We have personalized recommendations, recommender systems. Whereas you can be a customer trying to buy something on Amazon and the system will recommend you the products that may be of your interest. We could use recommender system also at our universities. If the student, it all happened to us. Sometimes, well, the students do not know what they really want to study from the early beginning. Why not to use recommender system based on the capabilities, on the achievement, on their preferences, on their hobbies, on their passions? Couldn't it be amazing? Why we have to spend 20 years studying to discover one day that actually I should be studying architecture? I'm not sure why I'm in marketing. I'm just kidding. I love what I do. So that's the one, recommendation system and personalized recommendations. Then we have natural language processing, which for me, I'm dealing with students who speak many different languages more than I do, but I'm using Teams, and the Teams allows me to translate anything that comes from China and Spain and Belgium and France. And even if students are sharing some articles and they assignments with me, and sometimes they have their notes written in different languages, I still can understand. So this is a huge help for me as an educator. Then we have the image recognition and all the search optimization that we are dealing with. So the artificial intelligence has really power to influence the business and to influence the education. And here are some examples. Augmented reality. Have you noticed that IKEA is completely redesigning their business model? Instead of having big stores and instead of having the catalog, actually keep the last one, because maybe this is the last copy. 2021 was the last copy of the catalog. I actually have it here with me and I'm not putting it to garbage. Maybe it will be a relic one day. So augmented reality is the one technology that actually, I wish that the universities that I work for could implement and we could work fully. I'm making sometimes projects with my students about making the campaign and publicity, and we are trying to design some applications that are using this technology. Then we have another one, virtual reality, and virtual reality will bring us to different world, right? Wouldn't it be amazing to learn about history by meeting Antonietta or meeting the dinosaurs? Actually, I will have some pictures for you as well here. So the virtual reality. Then we have the mixed reality that some universities are already using and implementing. We have no doubts it's used in aviation, it's used in medicine, but we can also use it in economic studies, in management, in marketing. Wouldn't it be marvelous just to take our students for a trip to discover the unknown? So then we have the metaverse, and all the brands are investing now on the metaverse, and the metaverse is all about creating new customer experience. Shall we use it also in academia? I wish. I wish. So here is the pictures, the gifts I showed. So we can learn about the dinosaurs by meeting them. Wouldn't it be amazing? Or we could learn about Steve Jobs or any other big CEO or economist or professor by meeting him almost in person, let's say. So then these new technologies are really giving me a lot of excitement, but as I say, it's a huge strife and a huge burden on us to learn and to accompany them, right? So coming now to what was mentioned at the beginning of the session, ChatGPT, OpenAI, it's really something that I believe we cannot say to students, please do not use. We
Joanna,
have.
could
Yes?
I request you to complete in about a couple of minutes, because I think we have Lou Fry or Liz Fry on the phone, and he would like to talk a few minutes.
Okay, so shall I stop?
Yeah, complete. Just take a minute or two to just complete, to close in your.
Okay. So I just wanted to show you, my students are using the ChatGPT, and sometimes they are like I'm provoking my students to ask questions that ChatGPT cannot answer. So it's just for you to see that this is not perfect, right? So of course, it does not have the preferences. And sometimes my students are asking, how many countries start with letter V? And the ChatGPT also cannot answer and is giving apologies. Do not forget that the ChatGPT is conversational design. So it's not a search machine, but we can have a conversation with it, which is fascinating, right? So yeah. Some of my students, just to wrap up, I asked my students at few universities, we made some studies, we made focus groups and the questionnaires. And here you have what my students think about the chat GPT. Of course, they say they cannot imagine their life without it, that it will be present, they believe, but they realize the chat GPT is not perfect. They realize they still have to search for the sources. They were also checking the paid version and they say it's not worth it. But they also realized that there are some colleagues that can use the ChatGPT kind of to mislead the professors, but they really feel it's important that the professors will encourage them and help them to understand all the advantages and all the responsibility that comes with it. Okay, so yeah, let's wrap it up. Thank you so much. I'm sorry if I took longer. Hello, hello?
Yeah, thank you. If you could stop sharing. Yeah. Okay, wonderful. All right. So I think, thank you very much, Joanna. If I could just invite Jody, can you hear us? And if so, maybe take a couple of minutes, 5 minutes to share your thoughts on what you heard or how could AI help with education?
Well, my senior moments must have had senior moments. Welcome from the PetSmart parking lot. It's 102 degrees in Austin, Texas. So it's not like I'm real prepared, but I would share, and of course, I'll be on a session tomorrow where I'll be talking about AI and sustainability, and I'm going to share some stuff I did putting together a workshop on spiritual leadership with AI. But I have an engineering background, so this stuff comes up. I go, oh boy. And so I have been thinking about it, getting ready for my courses this fall. And our university, of course, this is so new, they've done nothing on it. And so my sense was there's no way and looking back on it, I had some students that used it because they weren't good students, and all of a sudden they were making A's, in some essays. So looking back on it, so I decided I'm going to embrace it. You're not going to stop them. And so I'm not prepared. I just showed you the prompts. I had AI prepare an initial, what would I put in the syllabus for guidelines for students to use AI. And I have incorporated it. Of course, I modified it. And so I think maybe I can just show y'all that real quick. Maybe that might be interesting. Would that be okay? Mm-hmm. So if I can just figure out how to do share on my iPhone, we'll see. Let's hopefully it comes up. The parking lot Wi-Fi is not real good. Oh no, that's not it. So
that's
let me.
You can share some of the stuff maybe tomorrow in this session. Yeah.
Well, I can read some of it. It's on Dropbox.
Just read aloud. Yeah, that'd be good.
Okay, so on my syllabus, I've got use of AI resources, and it's become an integral part. Then I talk about permitted and forbidden circumstances of use. So I have permitted use. They're permitted to use it under the following circumstances: exploratory, and experimental purposes. Forbidden use, of course, plagiarism and everything. And it's interesting. I looked up how to cite AI in APA format. It turns out right now, APA doesn't really know what to do with it. So and because it's not permanent, you're to cite it as a personal communication. So you might want to go look and see, and they give some examples of that. And then I warn them about hallucination and student accountability. They're ultimately responsible for what they do. I talk about ethical considerations, and then using it responsibly, and then how to use as a learning tool. And I also give them 3 links. I give them the link to ChatGPT, Bing Chat, and Google Bard, and tell them that, you know, they need to learn how to do this because they'll be at a competitive disadvantage if they don't use it. So so that's kind of what I'm doing now. In other words, and I haven't spent that much time. I mean, maybe I've spent, I don't know, 10, 12, 15 hours. You know, I'd never touched it or looked at it. I did, the speaker you had earlier, the second speaker, he had basically what he did on an hour-long video. You may have sent me that. I looked at that, and then there's several others give you the history of it in more detail. And then there's a guy named, it starts with an E, out of Harvard. He's done a lot of stuff and has videos and a email, a newsletter he sends. If anybody's interested, I can give you that. Send me a link or send me an email and I'll send you the link. So there's stuff out there on how to teach it. Universities can't spell it, much less know what to tell you right now. And so it's really interesting that we can really be pioneers in this, and especially for MSR. So I guess I'll shut up right there. Was that okay?
Yeah, that was very good, positive note that we are leading.
Good deal.
Thanks
Good
for
deal.
pat on the back, shot in the arm. So
yeah,
how do you want to take?
Thank
you, Jody. Do you want to open up for Q&A for others to put comments or raise their hands or whatever?
Yes, sure. Okay, so here to just make a brief summary, Anil and Joanna were very on the same page on speaking about how you cannot ban ChatGPT because it's as silly as trying to ban calculators. Anil said, and Joanna, it's as silly as trying to forbid people from Googling something, and they both talked a lot about applications in business, banking, and IKEA, and so on. And me and Jody, we were also on the same page about what to do next year, right? And talking about putting how you can use ChatGPT on the syllabus and putting it on the learning objectives, and explaining to students how it's important to learn to use it. So it's there were a little bit, we were on, we did not rehearse it, but apparently we had 2x2 thing, and we don't have as much time as I hoped for the discussion, but I'd like to know if somebody wants to ask a question.
Or make a comment. Just keep it brief.
Yeah.
We can maybe go a few minutes over, if possible. Yeah, just at least 2, 3, 4 people if they want to make comment, quick comment. If nobody, then either the consensus is so much, everybody's the consensus, or
maybe it's always difficult, the first one, right? So maybe I start the first one. Anil, you talked about the 3 roles of education: instruction, certification, and then the social part. And then you spoke about that AI can provide for the 3 of them. Can you? I'm worried about the social part, because I fear that now students are going to close more, because before maybe they talk about each other to get help from each other. Now they can get help from AI. So can you elaborate a little bit more about AI and the social part and the social skills?
AI and the social part, I was thinking AI and more the Zoom kind of virtual connectivity and, you know, the kind of stuff that Joanna was talking about in the VR. But I mean, that in some sense, they're all part of artificial intelligence. So that's how I was thinking. In particular, it's not the conversational part. See, again, artificial intelligence is multiple dimensions: the computer vision part, the natural language understanding part, which is what ChatGPT is doing, and the machine learning part, which is actually solving problems. So I think that the computer vision, for example, is very key in terms of creating in Facebook, for example, face recognition, right? That's also part of facial intelligence. So just looking for friends based on it's common hobbies or common, like I think, Joanna, Eduarda, you were talking about like how we can suggest to them certain courses based on what this is, or recommender engines. I think Joanna was talking about, which is very much a system based on having data from others and sort of combine and creating a recommendation. So all of that stuff could be part of AI. I think there are many ways social part could be done. Though it's a more difficult part, than compared to the education part, instruction. So the virtual communities is a big part of it, but I think there'd be still room for very much, coming together and playing games and all that stuff. In fact, I can share with you one thing. I was organizing these bonfires on our campus when I came here 10, 12 years ago. And I said, let's do bonfires. There's a festival called Holi around March, April. I said, like, there's a custom to sort of create a bonfire. And then they hadn't done it for so long. And I was then worried that they would not allow me to do a bonfire, security, fire risk and all that. But the security chief himself came. He gathered all the wood from around the campus, whatever the wooden crates were there. He just put all the wood. I didn't have to do anything. And then he stood right next to this in his pickup truck after the fire was lit and students were singing and dancing. And I said, so how's it going, James? He said, 30 years ago, we used to do that and we didn't have a retention problem. So students bond around fire, students bond certainly, being with each other, and that will be obviously missed in terms of the relationship building, a part of what schools do. But there would have to be other mechanisms to create that kind of, bonding thing. Maybe the Girl Scout Club or Boy Scout Club, those will step up, or some other kind of YMCA activities might be other places for creating that social aspects. So AI may have a little bit of challenge in terms of doing that per se. But others, sorry, if I can go on, or unless somebody else wants to chime in. Earlier, the bonding was with people we knew in a smaller circle. Now bonding can be somebody in Australia and somebody in US and somebody in Portugal and somebody in Texas and so on and so forth. We can be best buddies. Just geography gets killed through AI and other internet-based technologies.
Yeah, look at us now.
Yes.
Anybody else who has any comment? We couldn't be that clear. Come on, don't tell us. Don't give us a silent treatment. Kevin, your camera is on.
I'm just thinking about your most recent comment about geography getting killed with AI. I think about people who early in the pandemic I met on LinkedIn and have never met in person. We've met multiple times on Zoom, but you still need that human element to actually take the initiative to make the connection and keep the connection going, even though the various matching algorithms that determine what shows up on our LinkedIn feed or other social media feeds are very good at matching us up with people who might have similar interests. And so it's just interesting to think about how the technology plays into, but still needs the initiative that comes along with the humanity.
Very good, very well. Yeah, very well said. If I would paraphrase in one sentence, I would say AI is creating opportunities for bonding. Ultimately, human beings have to take advantage of that opportunity and actually create and maintain that bond, right?
Yeah, that's a much simpler way of saying it. Thank you.
Okay. Yeah. Terry, please go ahead.
Just a brief comment, because I teach art studio along with the art history. And so art students learn the principles of design, and the first one is shape. And, back in 2007, I'm sorry, there was a project, Galaxy Zoo, and they put the computers up against citizen scientists. And the humans won and did it in less time than the computers because they cannot identify shape. So you could look at Galaxy Zoo for that project. And I haven't looked at the updates, but I don't know about that. So last I heard, they can't identify shape, only humans can. And just briefly, Anil, about AI would be good with assessing open-ended questions. And I would think that would depend. If it was all factual data, yes. But if they were also doing essays that were creative, right? There's more affect in it. I'm not so sure they could assess that. That would take a human, I think. Thank you.
Yeah, I totally agree with that. If I can respond to that, that's what I wrote. The creative part, we don't know how to teach. I think AI cannot teach what the human intelligence can't teach. AI is just, replicating what we could. So creativity is something that will have to be done by us differently. That will be our saving grace in terms of, evolving to become creativity enhancers, not sort of necessarily teachers. Okay, I think we are at time, unless somebody else has a comment.
I have a suggestion,
Tom,
Anil.
Yeah.
I had my computer quit, so I'm on my phone now. I think one of the concerns that I think we'll have to address is that AI is all about facts and driven, and it also encourages people to spend more and more time relating to computers compared to relating to people. And my thinking is that at some point we're going to have to start teaching people how to relate to each other. I mean, your whole point about social, and this is not just how do I put it? It's not just nice. Google did some research and looked at their hiring practices between 2008 and 2013. And they found out that there were 7 or 8 soft skills that were much more important than STEM skills in enabling people to advance in the organization and be effective. And I think one of the big concerns that I see is that we're relying more and more on computers, digital interface, all of this stuff. Kids spending hours and hours on games that are fascinating, relating to each other through text, all of this, and AI just enables that much more. And I just think that from an educational point of view, we're just going to have to spend more time on teaching people skills that are really important in terms of getting, functioning effectively as human beings in business or anywhere. So I think this is a big concern that I see with AI, and not just AI, but the whole technology orientation to technology. I'm not saying there's technology's wrong or bad. I'm simply saying that we're going to have to balance it with some other kinds of education.
Totally agree.
I was just going to say, it's interesting to think about where that all starts. We can do it, or we can sort of accentuate that in higher ed, whether it's undergrad or master's level. But, it starts very much earlier than that, teaching people the basics of etiquette in society, essentially, and how to relate to one another. And I think, it's almost to me, it's almost a societal question. If we wait till we're seeing them at the higher education level, is that far too late to really change? And how do you set the patterns for that much earlier in life?
I agree with you. I think that's really important.
I think it all starts at the family level, because if you look at the alpha generation, the kids, they are able to do everything in front of the telephone and make their TikToks and videos. But if you ask them to talk with people and to talk in public, forget. Unbelievable, right? So it's the change, the social change, I believe, that starts much earlier than university. It starts at the family, and it goes and grows, and it's the new trend. And I'm very curious where it will bring, because I'm noticing that still in Portugal, when my students are doing the group assignment, they work and they talk. And my students in Belgium and France, it's complete silence. I have to put some music in a room because they only talk virtually. They write together on the platform, you know, and it's a huge change and a huge difference. Yeah.
Okay, on that note, I think this conversation is to be continued, and I think all of the other sessions will have elements of this. We have DEI and B session coming up in the 20-25 minutes. So I want to thank you all for joining. Thank the presenters, Eduarda, Joanna, and Jody, to have led the session beautifully. I think it's a big question. I remember who was asking that Lee was asking when he asked that question of John Lass, you know, will AI do this? The right answer is we don't know. We don't know how this will settle. There will be sort of a balancing between the technology and the human element as always. Okay, so we stop recording at this stage. Thank you all very much.